What's going on, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be painting the carapace on my winged hive tyrant. I'm going to show you guys how to get that fleshy, bony, just gross look on a carapace on bone. Just a little short story. I had this whole thing filmed and painted beautifully. For some reason, the file wouldn't upload to my computer, so I primed over it, and we're going to do it again. So take two. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is how versatile this paint style is. Because this is a model that I did for a friend's army paint scheme, just as a little concept. And you can see that it still has that gory look to it. There we go, that's in focus. It still has that gory look, but we changed up the colors on the wings and the body from how I would do it on my army. And it's the same techniques that I'm using in these videos, but just different colors. And you guys can just do whatever your imagination can come up with. Alright, so let's get into the carapace of this winged hive tyrant. So we're going to start with some screaming skull. And we're going to get our brush a little bit wet and pull some out onto our palette. Alright, and then we're just going to do the same thing like we did with the wings. We're just going to pull it with the grain on the model, making sure it's wet enough that we can work on the model with the paint. There we go. Make sure you guys can see what I'm doing most of the time. Sometimes I'm going to have to move the camera or the model, but okay. Just make sure to get between the smokestacks, keeping the grain. We're going to go up the smokestacks. Here, I'll tilt it sideways there. We're going to go up the smokestacks to keep the grain. And then just pull the grain back on the flat part of the carapace. Make sure we're getting full coverage. And make sure your paint, again, is wet enough so that I could even go back to here and change the grain if I wanted to, which I do. But make sure your paint is wet enough that you can work with it on the model, okay? Because that's what's really going to help you get a even tone across your whole model. So let's get a little bit more water. I wish I had shown you guys the carapace painted before I primed over it, but we're just going to do the same thing again. It is no big deal. And I like painting anyway, so why not? Okay, we're gonna get the smokestacks. I don't even know if these are smokestacks, but we're just gonna call them smokestacks. And after you get the smokestacks, make sure you fix the grain on the carapace. Sorry if that was out of the frame. I drifted a little bit. Still pretty new to filming, so bear with me, guys. Especially when I'm focusing on doing a good paint job. I'm not looking up at the camera. I hope you guys are painting along with me. That would be fun. And you guys should send me some pictures of how your models turn out when you try this technique. Okay, we're in the shot here. Good. Just need to remember that this is exactly where I need to paint. A problem that I was having though, I'll share with you guys in the video I recorded before this, before I repainted the carapace, was I was being so aggressive with my dry brush, and I don't think I put on a thick enough base layer, that I was actually pulling the paint right off the model down to the plastic, and I was having to touch it up. So make sure you get a really thick base layer and a really nice layer of Screaming Skull on here too, because it is very easy to lift the paint off the model when you're doing this technique. You can patch it up, but it always looks better when you don't have to patch it up. Or you can just, you know, repaint it like this. That is always an option as well. So for the smokestacks, we're going to be doing a gradient blood fade from the bottom to the top. The bottom is going to be the bone color and the top is going to be bloody. I think it gives it a really nice look. And I will show you guys how to do that gradient. This is probably going to be a longer video because I'm going to paint the whole carapace start to finish to a point where I'm happy with it. So we're going to take our time. We're going to enjoy the process. You guys should paint with me and just listen. Just going to go over the carapace some more to get that texture that I want. And you always want to go with the grain. I can't stress that enough. We're also going to do a really cool effect on this model where it looks like the carapace is being split right down the middle. I did that on my other model and it turned out really nice, so I'm going to try to replicate that again. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with how that's looking right now. I'll bring it up a little closer, but keep it in focus. It's pretty bone colored right now, but we're gonna add some pink back into it with the corn red and the dry brush. I just gotta give this a couple seconds to dry. So why don't we start putting some Screaming Skull on these scales down the tail while we wait for the top to dry. I'll just start blocking these in quick. I usually paint my models unassembled first, but I assembled this guy because I really wanted a specific pose for him. So he's half assembled right now, and it's making it a little difficult to hit all the areas I want to hit, but it is what it is. There are trade-offs. I really wanted a dynamic pose with this model. You can see he's twisting off to his left, and then I have his head here too. We're gonna put his head pointing this way, and that should look really cool, especially when I get the wings on too. Actually, I have a painted wing here that I can show you guys. So this is what we're going for with the wing, and you can see it is gonna look pretty gnarly on this model. I can't wait for this model to be finished. I'm really excited for how it's coming along. That's the wing from the first video I posted where I showed you guys the flesh tone and how to achieve that. I just finished up the inside of it this morning. So now we're going to go to our dry brush and we're going to grab some corn red and get our model back in focus. I want a lot of red on my dry brush because I'm really trying to hit some high points on this model, like down the middle. And I really want to get a lot of red on here without having to be too aggressive with my dry brush. I really don't want to pull the paint off again. And we want the bloody color to build up along the back sides of these plates on the carapace. And then we also want the blood color to build up towards the top of these smokestacks. So just flick up with the grain. And then we're going to go back with the wet brush and we're going to do the gradient after. But it really helps to get some of that pink color on there to start. Sorry if my hand's in the way, it's just an awkward angle. Trying to do my best to show you guys everything without blocking it and keeping it in the shot and doing a good paint job. We're just going to flick up these smokestacks real quick. Get some more corn red. I'm happy I'm not pulling the paint. I think having it painted already and then priming it again has given me a thick enough coat of paint where hopefully it doesn't lift. I'm not going to say it's not going to lift because I am going to be pretty aggressive with the dry brush, but hopefully it doesn't lift. If it looks like it's starting to lift in any areas, I'm just going to stop rather than continue. I know that sounds obvious to say, but sometimes you can get eager to paint something and then just continue. Even though it's going to make more work for you later. You figure, oh, I've already got my dry brush out, I'll just continue, but really want to get that gradient on these smokestacks, that fade. And one more. Okay, let's just get the front of this here. And get your edges bloody. Get the red to build up on your edges. It'll look a lot better. Okay. Let me show you guys where we're at. So this is where we're at right now. It's a little oversaturated in those two spots there, but we can fix that with the Screaming Skull and the wet brush. I think that's what we'll do next, because I want to make sure it all looks good before I do the finer details on it. So we'll grab our Screaming Skull with our wet brush. And we're just going to put some streaks right over there. It's like an eraser. Look at that, it's all better now. And right here, where there's too much. And that's why I like using two colors, and that's it. Because you can just go back and forth between the two colors and use them like an eraser to just blend out any mistakes where you've oversaturated with one color or the other. Or if you've missed a spot, you don't have to find a paint out of your 20 paints that you're using. Just use two, it makes life easier. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to use our wet brush with some corn red. Just diving right into the pot. And we're going to bloody up the tops of these smokestacks here. Just make sure we get all the sides. Get a little more red. Oh, I pulled the paint a little bit on the third smokestack on the left side. You can see it right there. The paint has lifted, so I'm just going to go over it with the Screaming Skull again. I'm also going to blend these quick, just give them a nice gradient. So my red is really wet right now. That's why I'm able to achieve this pretty perfect gradient just by flicking my brush over the paint, over the model. And I'm always going with the grain when I'm painting. You're going to hear me say that 1,000 times. You're going to get sick of it. But I really want to drill it in there that to get that really nice realistic look, you got to go with the grain. And if it takes you guys multiple passes and multiple layers and multiple hours to achieve this look, don't even worry about it. It is worth it in the end. Because you will have the gnarliest models out of all your friends. Okay, let's go back to the dry brush with some corn red. I'm gonna shake this up real quick. I really want to build up the blood color towards the back of the scales. There we go. And this brush just hits the high points, no problem. I love it. We're almost doing like a fade. Like a taper. And then we're going to go down the middle one more time. Just to make him look like he's being held together. Okay. This is looking pretty sick. I hope you guys can see it as well as I can. Let's just take a minute to pause and appreciate this. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to make these scales on the carapace look like they're being ripped off of the model. So we're going to go back to our corn red and we're going to take our number 2 Artis Opus brush. And we're going to pull out some corn red on our wet palette. And we are going to just touch all along the edge. Where the layers meet each other. And you can go around the smokestacks too. Okay. That's the look we're going for. And we're going to blend it out with some Screaming Skull after, so don't worry if you put it on too saturated. It's all about blending. So we're just going to get that in there. Just grab a bit more water. I'm almost pushing into the crevice. Just pushing the paint in there. There we go. And do kind of a dabbing motion with your brush, because it gets the paint in there really nicely. And then we just need to go around this smokestack so it looks like it's being torn apart. We'll go around this one. And then we'll go around the ones on the other side. Oops, I gotta wipe some paint off real quick. I got some on the smokestack. Just use a wet brush that's clean to wipe it off. It'll come off. Just gonna push it in there because there's a little valley I can put the paint into. Okay, we'll just go over this once more because it dried a little light. And again, if you do this wider than you want to, we're going to tone it down with some Screaming Skull right about now. Oh, we got to do the split in his back. I almost forgot about that. Just grab some more corn red and we'll just brush it on there. Just using the side of my brush. And we'll highlight this little hole up top. And I like to do these little tapers towards the ends of whatever I'm blending. I just find it makes it look more natural. And let's bloody up the tops of the smoke towers while we've got our red out. Just get it super saturated. And kind of do like a dabbing effect. Just make it look random. Trying to speed up a bit because I know this video is starting to get long and you guys probably want to see the finished product. Sometimes it's better when you go quicker because then it gets messier, and the messy paint job sometimes suits this ultra gore style. Just try not to make too many mistakes when you go quicker. Okay, I'm gonna wet my brush, clean it off, and then I'm just gonna blend that. Actually, we'll use the dry brush to blend the smokestacks down. My dry brush is very dry. Let's just get some Screaming Skull on there. And just feather out the smokestacks. So this is how I had it painted when I did the first video and had to prime over it to redo it, which was so sad. But it's okay, because we've got it looking the same again. Just gonna grab some corn red, do some touch-ups, and hit some spots that I missed. And you can go as bloody as you want. You can make the fades bigger, they can bleed out more, they can bleed out less. It's all personal preference on how bloody you want the thing to look and how gruesome you want it to look. They say less is more, but you know what? Just go with it. Just have fun with it. Gotta hit the scales on the front of these towers with some red. And we'll hit this piece. Okay. I am pretty happy with how that's looking right now. Hopefully you guys can see that well. But yeah, that's how I paint. Let's finish it off just by putting the secret sauce on it, and then we'll call it a video. So we're going to use the Citadel plastic glue, and we're just going to put it onto our palette, straight onto our palette, and then we're going to use our really crappy brush to dab the glue onto the model. We don't want to brush the glue, because the glue is so strong it will pull the paint off the model. So we'll just start dabbing. And don't go over the same spot too many times, because that will also tend to lift your paint. I find the bigger the brush the better for this, because you could just do it quicker. And there we go. I'm calling that done. That is a pretty gnarly looking carapace, if I do say so myself. I'm probably going to play around with it a little bit more, tone down the blood a bit, because I did go a little over the top with the red, but you guys get the idea. I'll tell you what I'm going to do though, is these parts in here, where there's the blood, I'm just going to go back over it with some Screaming Skull, just to get this color again, just to pull it down. And then this area right here, where I went too red, I'll just pull that back down with some Screaming Skull. And then probably around the towers, I want there to be a little bit less bleed out. But other than that, this is pretty much what you're going for. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys leave a comment. I hope you guys find a way to send me some pictures. I'm on Instagram. If you want to follow my Instagram, it's pictor_deditus.